today we have something kind of neat. I was able to poke and prod Ryan Sage a little bit and get you guys some savings on some cool merch. So use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20% on any FD merch. You can, hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever it is. You can't get this sign. That's mine. You're not getting that one. But basically everything else, use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20%. Rep some FD shirts, some hats, whatever. And we'll see you out there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Gettins, and this week we have Mr. Rad Dan himself. What's going on?
How's it going, guys?
Oh, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm super pumped that you're back. I mean, of all the announcements, this one definitely got me pretty excited.
I'd say I'm pretty excited too. Glad to be back.
You and I chatted like super briefly in Florida, and I'd like mentioned to you then, I was like, so what do you think? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to sort it out. And sounds like it was pretty recent the decision was made.
So funny you say that we chatted briefly in Florida. So I was a little bit like wondering, should I just be done with drifting? Like the thought, went through my head. And then when I was there at an FD round in Florida, and just you could feel it, you can taste it. It's just you're there and you've lived it for so many years. It's like, no way am I done with this. So I wasn't sure how to get back, I guess like financially. And we could talk about that in a second. But like that weekend, I decided I gotta like start pushing. I have the trailer, I have the car, I have the shop. Like I know how to do this. I can drive. Let's find a way back. So that was kind of like when me and Renee started.
Okay. It's kind of funny to know because like it was interesting seeing you kind of like around and still chatting with everybody. It's like, you didn't miss a beat minus the actual try. It was almost like you didn't make qualifying and you were just hanging out with everybody.
And I'm just there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's neat. Was there like an instant was it like the moment you walked in the gates or like the first run or?
It was like I was fighting it inside myself. Like, you don't need to do this anymore. Maybe. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys or you, but like,
yeah,
that's all I could think about. So I was trying to like fight it inside myself. And once top 16 battle started and I was there to spot for Ola and, he didn't do so well at that round, unfortunately, but like, so then I got to just kind of go mingle with my people and like I missed it's like I don't know, I'm meant to be there. I like connect with all these people and so I'm there and I'm watching from, I don't know, I was in Dylan's pit with his mom and his people and not his pit, like where he had his tent set up.
Yeah.
And it was just like you could just feel it as they come to the last Outerzone when they come around that and you're just like, oh, I gotta be here. And so it was kind of top 16, I was like, yeah, we're going to get motivated to like start pushing to go back.
Was it like the drive home, you guys started talking about it and planning and figuring at that point?
I guess, yeah. It was like, at least it was in my head. I don't really recall if Renee and I were talking about it, planning on the drive home, but then we were like, okay, let's put some energy and start pushing to, go find the next partner that's going to make up the slack,
Is it like a number? And you don't have to tell me the number, but like, is there a number where you go, okay, if we can come up with this amount of money, we're in the clear? Or like, okay, this is, this amount we can start pushing and that?
There's definitely like a set number. For me, it's probably 150 is like you'd break even and you probably have a little cushion in there for like your truck braking, your trailer braking or something, like that.
Right.
So I'd say like 100, you could maybe make it happen. I don't know with like how, gas can be, diesel is more expensive. Flights are more expensive. Airbnbs have gone up, but like, It's probably more like 120 you could maybe, but like you got to pay your people. You got to pay the people that are, your crew. Otherwise, if you skimp there, that you're going to feel it. And I don't know. I've lived that and learned that over the years and you got to take care of your guys or it's like, you can't ask it's not easy what we're doing, traveling and stuff and hard, long days,
I think it changes your ask too. Like, I think and please, like, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but like if the guys are not being paid, per se. At the end of the event, you know, when everybody's tired, you're not going to be like, hey, like, I need you to, can you also like pull the trans? Like, we're going to have to rebuild it, right? Whereas if they're being paid, you're kind of like, not to sound shitty, but like, you're on the clock. Like, I do need that trans pulled out so I can rebuild it later instead of you just having to like
put the alignment in for next round, and it's raining and we still got to tear down after that. It's like, I fully get that. I've been there at the very beginning. Back in like 2015, 16, 17, it would kind of be like it was like guys that worked at my shop and we do like a trade thing. And like I cover the expenses to get them there, but like, okay, I'll trade you to help you get material for your roll cage or use my equipment at something, you know? It's not the best.
It changes the dynamic, right? Like, I think the more we see teams run as a business, the better they perform.
For sure.
So a business full of volunteers is going to kind of get volunteer effort.
Yeah. So I think you kind of need to hit 150 and up from that if you can. It's not easy. It's the hardest part of the game is the monetary sponsorship stuff. And, you know, it can come and go, as you can see. Yeah. Maybe to sidetrack a little bit, I like when we moved to Florida and then we had like this full set plan. And then when the marketing team changed at Gear Wrench and that was like last minute pullout and we're like, oh, like we thought about running on like less than, you know, we would have had to front out like a big chunk and we're like, should we do it? And we're like, but then you're going to do sacrifice type stuff. And it would be like, we had good momentum going at 21 to 22. There was like, you could see improvements in like the team and in my driving in the car. And I'm like, doesn't feel, it was a super hard decision, but it just didn't feel right to like do it that way.
Well, you guys broke it down really well in that video where you taught, like you literally said, like, we are not, it's not that we can't do it. We are just not prepared to go back to a way of living and a lifestyle that we have now more or less surpassed to do this thing.
It was a tough decision, but I feel like it was a good decision because I got to like step back and like view, because I've been in it for 8 years solid of just like, you know, hamster wheel trying to make this happen and at the beginning, and it got better and you're improving it. And then all of a sudden you're like, it's changed. And then I got to like calm down for a year, which I haven't done that in like a decade. Cause before pro, you're chasing to get through pro-am and, you know, it was really cool, but I crave it. I miss it. I miss the pressure. I need to get back in, and Renee too. It's like normal life or whatever you want to call that wasn't enough for us. We're like, we need to get back in this.
Yeah, I totally understand. I'm insanely busy. Just, I mean, podcast, I run 2 companies, like 3 kids. Like I have a nuts life. And people are like, oh, isn't it nice just to like relax? I'm like, I feel guilty. Like if I spend 3 hours watching TV, I'll like get up and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I could be doing anything else. Yeah. And I'll like look around and like, you know, I'm like, I could have been out in the garage. I could have been in my office. I could have been doing anything. It's tough. It's tough to relax.
It is. And sometimes you need it, but I'm not great at relaxing myself either. So I miss the like fast paced stuff.
Yeah. I think, I mean, if it was going to happen, it seemed to have happened at a good time because you were able to, you know, get the shop set up, you know, all the paving stuff going on and, you know, more or less get settled. And then, you know, now you don't have those distractions either of like, oh, we've got to move, or, oh, I want to repave this, or I want to move that shed or whatever, right? Like I can focus on driving. You're
not wrong. That's true. We got like, positives, I guess. If you look at it, you're like, oh, it's good that happened. So we did get to set up the shop. Chelsea Denofa had another way of saying, he's like, so when you're not at FD, you got so distracted, you're buying a bunch of Z3s and cutting them up to make like the skid pad in front of your shop. He's like, you don't need that. I'm like, yeah, but it's so much fun, and I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, it's a sick little set. I think all of us just want like a driveway that we can drift on, or just an area that you can go in. I mean,
mini
Turk's
track.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we probably all want a full track, but it's not obtainable, you know?
Yeah. That almost needs to be a thing. Like, I feel like you guys could do, between all of the drivers, like there's enough driveway tracks that you could create a circuit within FD where like the whole, like, 8 guys or whatever go to people's houses and you just have competitions in between rounds?
For
Like
sure.
a micro
Like,
FD competition?
I wanted to, well, like with the
Formula driveway?
asphalt out front, I wanted to get like a bleachers from like, I don't know, like Little League bleachers. It's only like 3 tiers. And then be like, okay, let's have like a top 8 competition, but they have to drive the Z3. So they're just like the same car, So there isn't really an advantage. And like possibly, I know I'm not that close to Orlando. I'm like 2 hours away, but possibly if a couple of the dudes, they came through last year. So
Yeah.
if they come by, we're definitely going to have to pull something off like that, like a little mini comp.
I feel like it's tradition for, drivers to come visit you at your shop or do repairs there. Like, you've had such a long list of people from, Forsberg, Kristaps, I know Olsen, Ula. I thought I saw like way back in the day, like Mad Mike even had his car at your house. Like, was it 2010?
At my house. Yeah. In 2010, so because of Mad Mike is what, like, I was like, I'm going to push myself to become a drifter. I always thought it would be cool, but I'm like, it's like super difficult to get into, FD. And I'm like, I didn't have parents that could fund it. So I was like, I don't know. And I was like nervous to try. So anyways, Mike in 2010 kind of like used my house for a couple, I guess points during the season. And, when we were on the road, it was closer to California. And then that's the beginning of my friendship with Mad Mike. And later in 2015, when I had the shop, he like was based out of the shop that year. So that was pretty cool. There has
you've just been like the valley of misfit toys, right? It's all these drivers just coming in, be like, Mike, can I? As long as they put their tools back, right? You're cool with them.
Yeah, for the most part, it's just fun, and then you usually learn something from another driver or a team, and like we're all like trying to accomplish the same thing, so we help each other out.
Yeah. Have you had anybody? I mean, I think Simon Supra is still there. I know. I don't know if Ula popped in. Did he just move it?
Yes, Simon just moved it. And then Ola's is still on the West Coast with like Pierre at Blood Motorsports.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure who you're housing these days. I was scrubbing
right now,
scrubbing YouTube videos.
Yeah. It might happen again, but as of right now, just my Supras and stuff and like a customer car.
Nice. So you're still doing, obviously you've moved pretty heavily into like parts production and stuff, but you're still doing customer builds?
So the goal was to like, evolve the business to do parts, and like we produced a lot of parts and we're always trying to do more and then sell other parts, that like other companies like Radium or ACT or BC and GSC, stuff like that. And over the years we like saw like, okay, the potential now we could move because we don't need to like sole focus on customer car builds, which is cool and it's fun to like show people, but it's hard work. It's a lot easier to sell parts and it's a little more profitable. So we told ourselves, hey, let's stop doing like customer cars. I guess though I got talked into this one. So it's a previous customer and we built him a Supra. I think we delivered it to him in like 2019. It's a really nice street car for him. And it was a Targa though. And he wanted a hard top always and wished he could. And so he found a hard top and he's like, damn, I'm shipping. And he found it in Florida. He's like, I'm shipping it to your shop. I'm like, no, you're not. he just did. And like, I guess I could have fully said no, but I'm like, this guy builds cool car. Like he'll go the distance and put everything. So I'm like, this will be a really cool one. So I agreed to it. And at this point, it's stripped to nothing and it goes to paint, I think next Monday. So it'll be a cool, like full restoration rebuild, but there might be more. Who knows?
I mean, the nice thing is you can be choosy now, right? Like,
yeah,
you can decide to work with people, that you want to work with or that you like clients you enjoy working with, right?
True.
When you first start a company, I mean, 2014, you're probably just taking anything you can grab,
anything.
Right?
You just say yes. Like, and you're thinking, I got to pay rent, and how am I going to save up to buy that part to go to, the next round or whatever. Like, you're just taking, and that's not the best business plan, but that was, you learn as you go, and that's definitely how I started for sure.
Yeah. I think that's so many people. Like, it's so difficult to just jump off and be like, oh, I'm going to be selective. Like, you'd have to have a pretty good financial back. I mean, starting your own company for anybody is scary.
Yeah. You need like a reputation, which takes years before you could be selective. And you need like, I needed like old people that were like just observing to be like, hey, quit doing everything. Specialize. I'm like, what? But then I won't have as much. You're just so worried you're not going to cover the rent or whatever, or the payroll and the rent, that it's like you have to live it. And then you're like, he was right. That old guy was right, because he already lived it probably, you know?
I did the exact same thing. Like I was doing marketing and I was like building websites for like everybody and all this stuff. And then it was like, someone's like, just do the thing you like to do. I'm like, it's racing. And they're like, well, just do that. I'm like, the market's not big enough. And it's like, it turns out it is. You just have to be good enough.
It's like, you just have to believe in yourself and just do it. But like, you got to live it a little bit first, you know?
Yeah. I think it was 2021 is when we just stopped taking clients that weren't cars related. And like, there's a couple that were like, on the edge for a little bit. And then, even now I think we have like one non-car client, but they've been a client of ours since 2019. So like, I can't say no to them.
They're a good one. And you're like, yeah.
They pay their bills. I mean, they don't ask questions. I just do the work and send them an email every once in a while. And they're like,
that's the best kind of customer. So that's why there'll still be some car builds, I'm sure, here, but I'm going to try and say no to most of them.
Yeah. So why the Supra of all the cars? Because I mean, you had an S chassis before. I think you even had an FDRX7. Why Supra?
So I had an FC. I don't know if there's any pictures out there of. I did own one S chassis. I bought it. It sat at my apartment complex, and I was going to V8 swap it to drift, and that was like a coupe. I don't think you might be thinking my FC was a S chassis, but that's how I did. So I did. My Pro-Am was in an FCRX7. But so why the Supra? As a child, when you see a car and you like run up in a parking lot and look in the window and look at the speedometer and it says 180 and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was the FDRX7 and the Supra for me were like my dream cars as a child. So I owned an FDRX7 and everything falls apart on it on the inside, like the plastics and stuff. It's a Mazda. I still like the way those look. And then when I got my first Toyota, I was like, whoa, these things are like built a little different. And then I was finally able to get a Supra when I was 21 and I fell in love and I was already in love, but I just can't quite get over it yet still. Still love them.
Of all the chassis to pick, it's definitely, I'm partial to the FDRX7. I've never owned one, so I don't know the issues yet. So it's still that like poster car for me.
They're beautiful.
But my best friend has a JDM Supra. It's a 98 Edge. I get it. I totally get it. It looks beautiful no matter what angle. Yeah. Wherever it's parked, it looks good. You'll just get people coming up to you constantly.
I can't get over it yet. I'm sure I'll be an old man and have some Supras, but FDRX7s, that looks good from all angles. It's just the rotary, you can't get the torque and the power out of. So you kind of always lean towards putting a V8 in the RX7. I don't know. Not if it's like a purist, but if you want like all the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you want everything about the handling and style, but then the power to match it, like that's
sometimes
the V8 makes sense.
The rotary people are mad. I'm sorry, guys, but I said it.
They're
lots of
upset.
RX7s, and I had lots of rotaries.
Like I said, I think you picked a great car. I do still like kind of question that platform for like the FD level. Are you kind of in the same boat as Dean Carney where it's like
I don't think it's that bad. I don't. Okay, I didn't let you finish. I'm sorry. Okay,
no, it's all good.
I think his car's hard to drive. I think I think if you put Dean, okay, we're getting sidetracked, but put him in something else, man, he would do better. The Supra, I think, is better than that, and I think I just didn't have people to bounce ideas off of. And sometimes I probably did it the hard-headed, long, learn your lesson and not listen to, because like I had guidance from people that didn't have a Supra though. And they're like, do this. And I wouldn't listen right away. It would take me like a year to do what they had told me to do. Cause I'm like, I don't think that's it. they don't have, they didn't drive the Supra. They don't have, but like you've seen some Supras do pretty good in like Russia, I guess, like where Jack drove one and he did really good. That's fully modified and didn't look like a Supra, but like the suspension's still a Supra. I don't know. I should have just done more mods quicker and like change the front around a bunch, change the back around a bunch, but like I didn't really have the money and I was just like, you could say like paycheck to paycheck trying to get to the like barely making it to a round, and I would save up in between rounds and work my ass off to get to the next one. So I wasn't like developing any new, anything between it up until Mike Essa helped me a lot figure out the back of the car, because we were like not having enough travel, like not enough stroke and droop and stuff. So we made like some custom coilovers that are come up inside. The top hat goes up inside and it like gives me a little bit more travel. That helped a lot. And then the persistence of Matt Field, like camber the front of your car. And I'm like, okay, but I should have just listened at the beginning. But like finally he's like, because I was like, drive my car and tell me what you think. He's like, not enough camber in the front. And I was like, fine. And we were at like Apple Valley Speedway one day when like I think Drift Week was there or something. This was like 2019 probably. And so finally I cambered the front of my car like crazy, like 5.5, 6 degrees of negative camber, whole different car. I kind of should have done it sooner, but I didn't know.
Well, I mean, I understand the hard-headedness, because it's always that defense of like, well, they're not driving my car. That's not my style. That's not this, right? Like it's tough. And it's not universal. Yes.
Oh, okay. The parts didn't allow it. I had to like change there's not a whole lot of kits and the WiseFab didn't allow for that much. So I had to like change some things and like add little bits to the WiseFab. And then I was like, oh, it's a whole different car. And it's like, but I don't know. I wish like I knew sooner, but whatever. It's working good now.
Was the camber just to keep the contact patch at angles?
Yeah, so before we had done that, let's say I had like 2.5 degrees, like 2.8 to 3.5 degrees of camber was like the max you could kind of get without things starting to bind. And so if you look at pictures or video, it would like start to roll over and be a little bit positive at full angle. And on top of that, it wanted to like, because it's doing that, it wants to yank it to angle. Like you get into a corner and it's trying to be like, let's go full lock. And you're like, what the car just wants to add angle. And it would be like you fight with the car. Like you don't let it go to angle, but you're like, if you let go of the wheel, it would have gone to angle. So it's like, yeah, I should have. And too much self steer. Like it was pulling it into the rest of the way. Especially a bank track. Like you flick it into Irwindale and it wants to add like not full lock, but like way more than you want. And you're like, what are you doing to me? And then you like kind of fight it and it would almost be twitchy. So then once you add all the camber, doesn't do that anymore. And it's taking grip out of the front at the same time by doing that. So then it's like, it probably, I just had too much front grip. There's like 10 things and it just took years of slowly making changes and then the car's easier to drive. It's definitely not the best car for drifting, but I'm in it this far and I really want to see how far I can go with it. If I was to change chassis, then you got to follow in someone else's footsteps or go down that path again,
Well, I think you're also progressing that chassis. And I mean, as a business case, like it makes sense too, right? You're known for it. You're progressing that chassis, you're progressing that engine platform. And the more you're learning, the more you're developing into parts, which is just R&D for resales. So like, but I also get that side of it.
Yes, but then we have to think how many Supras are drifting? Very few. The parts though, people are still like refreshing them or rebuilding them or building engines. But at some point I'm going to have to broaden,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a new Supra.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's not the same.
Supra.
Well, hey, I mean, it's either that or a Yamaha Supra, right? Like,
true. But I like Yamaha more than BMW. But yeah, maybe I should do stuff for the other one. Not yet, but I will.
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, What would be the ultimate is if somebody built a body kit that made, the new Supra look like a Mark IV. Like if you want to develop
a modernized
something,
Mark IV, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, and I'm sure people would like shit on it, but like,
they would buy
as
it.
you said, that other Supra with that insane, I don't know what that kit is.
It's Cabargan Drift just built something of his own. Like you know how he did that with the C7 that he drives now, and then he like renames. I don't know what he calls it, but I'm like, what is that, an Audi, or what did you do to the front of that?
But look at like a Veilside FDRX7, right? Like if you didn't know, if you had no idea, you would never guess that was an FDRX7.
True.
We all know now because it's such an iconic car. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to push career advice on you. I mean, my job's armchair quarterback. You guys get to actually do the thing. So it's just interesting. I'm always curious about people who have kind of like picked a chassis and stuck with it, because like there's definitely something to be said about that development, and there's also something to be said about a more competitive chassis, right? Like
it's just the love of that car, and I figured like I was, at first it was just like, this is the car for me. I'll make it the best car, and then later you're like, it's clearly not the best car, but it has potential. It doesn't. There's not like where it hit a point where like we can't get any more grip out of the chassis, like mechanical grip. It has a lot of positives. It's just there's some negative. I think each car has their negatives. The BMWs seem to be the easiest. The trailing arm BMWs like E36 or 46, and they are easy to drive, but I don't want to be the same as every other person. So I'm like, I'll stick with the Supra.
Well, just on the marketing front of it too, right? Like having something that's different, having that iconic car, I'm sure going and chatting with brands, it's a little bit easier because they already know like, oh, it's going to be on a Mark IV Supra, right? Like
it helped
you're synonymous
a ton at the beginning. I think now they're over it, not over it, but not as,
Yeah.
It's been around for so long. Yeah. But like at the beginning that helped us. But then when you're like going for like big partnerships, they look at everything. They probably don't care so much on the car as like a parts sponsor or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. So can you give me the story how JTP and Ryan Clemens gave you the name Rad Dan?
Yeah. So when I first was getting into drifting, I got like going back to my roots. My first car was a Turbo 2 RX-7 when I was in high school when I was 16. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, like I can't I had a Supra at the time, but I was like, I can't like ruin a Supra learning how to drift and smashing it on. I mean, you're going to ruin a Supra. So I got the FC, and then that was like the connection with JTP because he had an FC and like he helped me with some setup stuff. And then we became, like friends every time I would like ask him for something, or we go drive together at a Willow track day and stuff. And Ryan Clemens also had the FC with a V8 in it. So it was like the little group. And then, so at the time, JTP had Hotline, and that's the name of his shop. And like he was doing like fab work to cars or building, full builds on cars, depending on the customer, whatever. But like just making a living that way and being a Falcon driver at the same time, and like housing all his toys there. So then when he would get too busy, he'd be like, hey, Dan, do you want to work a couple days? I have this job to do. Cause like he had his Ryan Clemens, full-time fab guy, but then he would get extra work and like he couldn't do it or whatever. So I would go up there when the shop was in Gardena, I would go up there and work on stuff with him. One particular time, it's this guy, his name was Bill. He had a pretty clean FC, like really nice, like no rust, like, and he's like slowly adding stuff to it all the time. And he's like trying to learn how to drift. It didn't even have, I think he didn't have a cage yet, but he would like go to, I don't know, this was a long time ago too, like 2010. So like times were different back then. I go up there and the job this day was like coilover install and I think something else. I can't remember, but the job didn't happen. So what happened is I go to jack up the car and like I had an FC, so I'd always jack it up off the front subframe. And the jack I was using was like a smaller one. It didn't have like, you know how they have like the little 4 sections it'll grab on? It was like an aluminum, like 1.5 ton jack, and it didn't have like the teeth that grab as much. And the subframe had a little bit of oil on it, and he had his handbrake up. Didn't check. I was like just in a hurry, and I start jacking it up. And instead of the car rolling with like the handbrake being off, it would have rolled up, and I was going to put jack stands under the front and then go to the back, get it up, and I go to get the jack stands, and I just hear and it slides off the subframe and just lands right on the radiator. And I'm like, oh. So I go into the office. I'm like, Justin, because he's like doing something on his computer. I have something to tell you. And I'm like, I know he's going to be mad. I'm like, I ruined this guy's radiator, but I'll buy a new one. It's a Koyo. I know how to get one. I could get it today. I'll fix it. He's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, I did. No, he wouldn't believe me. And then he was all upset, but then he's like, well, I guess if you're going to pay for it and handle it, I can't be that mad. We got to tell Bill. So he tells Bill, and Bill's like understanding. And then I get back with the radiator. He's like, Ryan and I decided your new nickname is Radiator Dan. I'm like, fuck. And then the next day, or like maybe a couple days later, he's like, that's too long. Your nickname's Rad Dan. I was like, okay, I'll just run with it.
Yeah.
And then it stuck, and that's the nickname.
I mean, I'd heard stories that came from Radiator, but I'm glad that I'm glad we were able to confirm
I wish I had it. The radiator was just horseshoed. I could hang it on the wall, but I don't know what happened to that radiator.
We'll just we'll call up Koyo and get a baseball bat out and
smash one.
Yeah. I think it's funny though, because like the I don't know if the personality was like attached to the name or how that worked out, but like, I mean, you've done bungee jumping, you've done like all these crazy things. You've always been a generally rad person, from what I can tell from stalking your social media. So it's like it fit too well.
It did, and I was like, "That's cool. Thanks for the nickname." And I don't think he had any idea I would like. I was like, Renee, we should make a sticker, and then she made a shirt, and this was like 2010, I think.
Okay,
I don't know, like, yeah.
So you would have had a mohawk then too?
So I had a mullet then. I was helping Mad Mike for like certain rounds that I could get to. He wasn't paying me. I was just going to volunteer and like get to some of the rounds for him that year in FD. And because he didn't really have, he would help with gas money. He just didn't have it like you thought he did. He was just making it happen to get to America. And, he's really good at like doing what he does. And like, I was like, watching everything he did, I was like, I gotta find a way to be my own version of kind of like this guy. And at the same time, I'm observing JTP and like Chris Forsberg or anyone, Mike Essa, because like those are like my idols at the time. I'm like, haven't even started doing pro-am drifting. I'm just like starting drifting at the time. And I don't know. Like that's just kind of how the beginning of my drifting went,
I mean, it's good branding between mullets and mohawks and mohawk mullets now. And
I think I had a mohawk and then I just grew the back out. Like I think is how it happened. I didn't have a haircut. No, I remember now. I didn't get a haircut for a really long time. And Matt Powers had like kind of longer hair in the back. And I was like, I'm going to do a mullet. It's going to be better than both of our haircuts. He's like, no, you won't. And then I did it and people would like laugh about it. And then I just was like, I'll keep doing it. And then it was kind of, now I have to do it, I guess.
You're lucky though. It's come back around.
It came back and now it's not even funny. Everyone does it. I'm like, okay.
Dude, my 10-year-old's got a mullet, like totally non-ironically. He's like, I love this haircut. He's like, all the girls like it. I'm like, okay, man. Like,
yeah. I'm
like, my dad had a mullet when he was, my age. So it's just come back around. That's all.
Yeah. So I'll keep it for a little longer.
I like it. I had a mohawk for a really long time. Used to have like a giant lime green mohawk. So I'm down with any crazy hairstyle.
Cool.
So have you ever thought about creating a pizza delivery service that has young men wearing nothing but bike shorts and bow ties delivering pizzas?
Oh, how did you hear about that? Did I tell you about that?
I got to do research, man.
That was like, that was just like the icebreaker to like talk to Renee and get to know her. And I was like, pizzas. So she was like the neighbor in the apartment complex. And like, I had said hi to her, but like in passing or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to like get through? She's like, just so serious, gets home from school. Like she's going to college and like walks in and like goes through. I'm like, okay, like she is not having it. Like, how can I ask her on a date or how can I? So I just had to be like creative. So I had these like really short. Well, when you're like, I guess not everyone's like this, but when you're younger, like 18 to 21, you're like, just do dumb things to get attention and to laugh. And like, so I was a valet, so I had like plenty of bow ties because I had to wear a vest and a white shirt and a bow tie. So I just put the bow tie on and these short green shorts that would be like what 80s people wore to go running or whatever, you know, but like not even that fancy. And pizza delivery, and they're like, we didn't order a pizza. Yeah, you did. And I walk in with an empty box of pizza, and it's like her and her two roommates. And they're like, what is the neighbor doing here? And then I'm like, here you go. And I set it down on the coffee table and like sit on their couch. And I was like kind of nervous, but I'm just like trying to like find a way to like keep the conversation going so I could get to know them, you know? It worked eventually. You know,
that's amazing. That dude, the cojones it takes to do that is nuts.
I don't know why I even did it. I don't even know how I thought of that. It just happened.
Well, and you would have been ripped at the time too, which helps, right?
You're just like skinny, like like less body fat, 20-year-old. I think I was 20. Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
And then a couple of years later, you guys are married and running, shop together. So it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah. We've been together since 2004, so it's been a long time.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Yeah. I mean, you're coming up on 20 years, man.
Yeah, we're getting old.
You don't look it though. I mean, you're one of those people that just doesn't age linearly. Maybe like when you hit 60, it'll all like come at you, but
probably we don't feel old, but we're always like, oh crap, like these people are 25. Like, okay, we're a little older than them. Yeah,
it's all about how you feel, though, right? Feel and act.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely don't act your age. That's for sure.
No, I want to be like a 12-year-old kid. Tell him, I don't want to grow up.
No, it's a trap, right? Like why?
Yeah, we don't need to grow up.
No, you don't. And that's the thing. Like you don't truly have to. Like you have to do grown up things, but it doesn't mean you have to actually grow up.
You got to be responsible, but enjoy life.
Yeah. So would you officially denounce 2Js if you had the opportunity to become Wolverine?
Yeah, that would be my one wish, be Wolverine. I guess we could get rid of 2Js.
You would trade 2Js if you could become Wolverine? I wouldn't
need him anymore if I was Wolverine. Where are you getting all this information? You called Renee?
I got sources, man. You got to remember, I had like Norwegian invasions in there. I got a whole list. So
true. That's my one wish in life, to be Wolverine. I know it's far-fetched, but
it's okay. Hey, you wish to have a Supra. I mean, you wish to have a Supra. You wish to make it to FD. Like, true. Wolverine's next. I mean, what they're doing with medicine now, why not?
That's never going to happen, but I wish it was possible.
It's I think there was a Halloween costume
activate
too
the claws whenever you want. Yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be good. I mean, even just like at the odd occasion, like a loose fastener, and you can just bust out the claw, and you got a flathead ready to go.
Yep, come in handy all the time.
So we're on a serious note. So where are you at with like planning for next year? Like, how far have you guys gotten? Obviously, you've figured out sponsorship to some degree.
Yeah, so we were waiting. Well, like we had it set in our head, like we're gonna do this, but then you do need to find the partners to back you, or find like the winning lottery ticket, I guess. So, we were hustling pretty hard there for a couple months. Renee does the bulk of that, and like I'll come up with ideas maybe, but give the credit to Renee. So. With Gear stepping out, we had already the in with SunX that we had like someone we knew at SunX, and we kind of were growing that throughout the year. And they knew we wanted to go back, but they had to like kind of pitch it to their bosses and like have it make sense. So we had this thing growing in the background the whole time. On top of that, we had another thing that we've been kind of working on for a year. So it's going to be. The main reason we were able to come back is SunX Tool. Second reason is Loctite. And that one hasn't been announced yet, but that's another pretty big brand, a good brand to be working with that we're pretty pumped on. It's just that we didn't have contracts yet, so we weren't going to say something and have it, be like, that didn't happen. We're those people, we're not going to be that kind of, team. So that's kind of why it took us so long and like, how companies are when they're trying to, it's like everyone has to be part of it before they're going to make their decisions for the following year. So it just took the time, but we do have two other companies that we're working. I can't say those names.
That's all good.
But we're getting there. That could be even better for us. So it could even be a better comeback than we say right now. But we won't have those answers yet. Maybe next month, this month, who knows? Oh no, next month or January is what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. I don't think a lot of people who aren't involved with like contract negotiations or sponsorship understand like this is it never stops. Like you're constantly chatting with brands, even if it's just like off the cuff stuff. You're meeting people at booths or PRI, SEMA. Those ones are easy pickings.
Because it might happen like a year. You never know when like it's just gonna pop off and they'll be like, okay, we need you, Dan, or whatever, or Jacob. And so it's frustrating that we had to step out for a year, but I'm pumped that we were able to pull it together. And it's better than, I think, with multiple medium partners that we could grow with and pull another one in. I feel like it's better than how when we left. It's like really good foundation to build off of moving forward. And I hope we can be back in there for, several years until I decide, I'm too old. I'll stop now.
Well, I mean, I could definitely see you, running a team or consulting.
We will do that for sure. But I want to get the driving. Like, I want to get what I want to get out of it. And I haven't got I came there to do something. I haven't done it yet. So once we accomplish that, in the meantime, we have talked about running a second car and we have more Supras and we could build another chassis and we have, we know what to do. So that will happen, but that's not going to be next year. It might be couple years down the line.
Well, you've got to build it out. I mean, you want to establish with these brands, you've got to find a driver that suits, build the car, make sure you're in a good spot and go from there. I mean, looking through your actual, track record, non-ironically, like you've had good results too. And you've had good comebacks and you figured things out. I mean, notably qualifying first in St. Louis in 2020. Even Monroe, you qualified like 32nd and then took fourth. Like,
man, that was it's all in. Yes.
What is it? Is it like a head thing?
It's in the head 100%. So I just have to let go. So the big thing is just don't think. And it took me a long time to learn that. But I had to just actually do it. And I did it a couple rounds I think I did it 3 rounds last year where I just had fun, didn't think. And I'm like, trust my car. The team is going to do what they said they're going to do. And when you actually just let go and do that and you don't try and micromanage your own lap or whatever, your body knows what to do. So, and my body does know what to do. So I'll be doing a lot better next year. Like I'm just going to do I have a couple things I've been working on in this off season or this long year off. And you'll see the best results you've ever seen from me next year. And I'm just going to have fun and enjoy it. And there's not going to be the pressure that I was putting on myself. And that's probably why I was you just make a mistake that you're like, that's not even me. Like, how did that happen? And it's because you're overthinking. And we're just not going to be doing that.
Yeah, you can't think. I mean, it's everything happens too quickly for you would screw up.
Yeah,
if you actually truly
the last
react,
thought needs to be you put it in first gear and you got the car to leave the line. That's all you should ever think. And after that, your body, I've been there so many times, your body knows exactly what to do. Mm-hmm. You just focus on the car you're chasing, or you just do your lead lap. And when I finally let go of that, I drove way better in those rounds. But then there was a couple rounds last year where I had this insane pressure from some outside sources where I was I need the results. And whenever you think of that, it just falls apart.
Yeah, that's the last thing that you want, right?
Yeah.
You're under no one will put you under more pressure than yourself, right? No one's going to be a harsher critic than yourself.
For
so
sure.
Adding on to that, it's oh, cool. Now I have everyone else's expectations on top of that.
Yeah. And then it just will all fall apart. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to do really good next year and you'll be pumped for me. And then you'll see why we're so excited for the comeback, I guess.
Yeah. All right, all you podcast listeners, I managed to poke and prod Ryan Sage a little bit and save you some money on merch. So use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20% on your favorite FD merch, with the hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever it is that you want. Use code podcast23 at checkout. Save that money, get yourself some cool FD stuff, and we'll see you out there. Is there any major like engine changes, chassis changes, or anything like that?
No, like there'll be like small little upgrades or little things. I'm just gonna go through it and make sure everything's ready for battle and ready to like, go try and destroy it like we always do. But it was so reliable in 22 and like zero issues. And like I thought about, there's a couple of things I do want to do, but I don't think it's the right time. Like I really want to do fresh air anti-lag. And like it's like a cool thing, but it's another system that could fail. It's something I should have like built and tested this year, for example, and I'm not the kind of guy that wants to do everything new and then let's test it twice and we're at Long Beach. I don't like that. So we're just going to run it. Same engine. Well, it'll be a new engine, but same, 3-4 stroker and just try and keep it, right around 950 at the wheel. And
why do you think so many people have moved away from strokers? Because it seemed like the stroker was the thing to do for the longest time. There was some issues that happened with it, and then a lot of people moved away. But you've stuck with it. And
I didn't have a stroke. I've still to this day never had a built engine that wasn't a stroker, and I've never spun a bearing, never broke a hole in a block, never done anything. I'd never hurt a bottom end. I've messed up a lot of cams and buckets because of anti-lag stuff. So that's why you don't hear my car making pops and bangs anymore. And it just, because like the head is the weak link on a 2J. It's not very weak, but when you're pushing real hard and you're on the limiter, it's going to wear valves out. And so I've kind of learned over the years of how to make it last a whole season. The stroker issue. So if you go way back, people weren't like align honing and boring for billet main caps. And that is you can't do that. Like, so there's some people that were having issues there. There's a lot of the people having issues if you go back and look, they're either overspinning them or they're a front sump 2J. So if you're a front sump, you're already, up against a hurdle there because like the G forces are going to pull the oil kind of out of the sump. So if you have a rear sump 2J, usually will never spin a rod bearing or a main bearing, but a front sump will. Not always, but they will.
Yeah, more likely to.
Yeah, so each one probably has its issue. Like if you're saying, Ken Gucci or Ryan Turk or whoever else you're gonna say, Forrest Wang even had some issues, but like
I wasn't gonna name names, but here you are, so it's okay.
front sump. They're all front sump, so you got those issues. And I had a stroker in my street car when I first did my first like engine build way back, and I was like, it was the coolest thing because it has mid-range torque, which you don't have to wait for the turbo to spool. So like if you've driven one, then you didn't drive, you're going to be like, I kind of want the stroker. So it's just like, I don't know, they just had their issues. But when I'm building an engine, I want it to be as close to a V8 like power band as I can make, but out of a 2J. And I stay 2J because then it's a purebred vehicle. And I always thought that was super cool that it's, the same engine that came in, so, and I can't let the fans down, but it would be pretty cool to have like a super built V8 in like this. The chassis could take so much more, just a big supercharged V8 in a Supra, but I'll never do that. So if I ever do that, I'll be in a C7 Corvette, but we're going to keep pushing the Supra for a couple more years.
Yeah, I think between if you did the fresh air anti-lag, obviously that reduces the likelihood of top end issues. The stroker kit fills out the mid range. I mean, that would be a pretty phenomenal setup.
It would be like you had nitrous, like every time. It's like I never even got to drive it, but when you ask like Ryan Turk about it, he's like, "Oh my god, it's amazing! Like I wish I had it." And when you ask Brian, Heartsock Motorsports, Brian, the guy that's like really involved, he's like, you should do it, and he's like, just do it now. I'm like, I'm not gonna just do it now. Like I don't want to have issues,
I mean, you could run it on like a practice car or something like that, or a demo car.
That's the type of person that's what I should do.
I want to say it was like, man, I think it was wall. I don't think you did well, but you had like your anti-lag just absolutely cranked at one point in time. And I remember that being like the pinnacle of the pops and bangs.
Hurts the most. It hurts the head.
Yeah.
Like on the exhaust side. What it does is it'll hurt the bucket. You'll get like float your valves with all that happening, and the bucket will come, like it'll be kind of rattling around in there just ever so much. As the cam lobe comes down, it explodes. Like the bucket will just be annihilated or it'll get jammed sideways. And then you can't feel a power loss per se because you're just in it and you only lost that one valve. But then it's just chewing that up, and that's all through your motor. And then you're like, well, there we go. Like it'll still run, but it's like, well, now I got chunks of metal throughout. So I got to, you just, the smart thing to do is just set it aside and like tear it down and put your spare in. So I did that several times, and I was like, and it hurts your exhaust manifold. They'll wear out an exhaust manifold every 2 years for sure. Sometimes once a year because it's like exploding in there. So it wasn't worth it. So we don't do that anymore. And it wasn't improving the way the car drove like at all, really, because it's not the same as the cold air anti-lit or the fresh air where it's just like keeping your turbo like fully lit. Like that's where it's at. Because then it's like you could have boost basically off the line if you asked it to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Well, I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, even if it's not coming this season.
It'll happen. You'll see it happen before I'm, done with this stuff.
Before I'm through.
Yeah.
So what made the decision final for you guys to make the move to Florida? Because that's huge.
It's like 10 things. So we could like, I don't know what would be the biggest factor. It's probably the California rules taxes is like technically the biggest factor because like California weather is going to be the best weather year round. Florida has like decent weather, but it's a little too hot, a little in the summer, a little too cold in the winter, and then there's hurricanes. So rain and hurricanes. So like it's probably the rules and how like it's just so strict. And having a race shop that was modifying other people's cars in California had me like stressing all the time. Like, are they just gonna walk in? Is the EPA coming for me? And like, I don't know what like the target is for them. And luckily nothing happened, on those levels, but that had me pretty worried. And like, we had people sign all these things like off-road use only. When the car comes, you take the plate off, and it's just, so that sucked. The cost of rent, the cost of, like you weren't going to be able to buy a building there in California unless you were making all the, we don't make that kind of money. So we weren't going to be able to buy a $3.5 million building where that's what it would have been where we were.
Jesus.
And so we're like, okay, so we keep renting and rent keeps going up. And then you want to buy a house. You're like, okay, it's like 1.2 million for a 1,600 square foot 3-bedroom in Costa Mesa. And we're like, that's like the mortgage will be the same, or if you had a big down payment, the same as the shop's rent. And we were like, nah, like I don't know, like I don't know. Those are some of the reasons. Yeah,
there's nothing keeping you there, right? Like
no, we miss the friends. We miss like California is convenient. It has 10 of everything you could ever want. It's there, and it's only 30 minutes. Well, traffic, but supposedly 30 minutes away. But like that part we don't have in Florida. Everything's like you got to drive or ship it in, which we're just happy. It's like slower pace of life here, and it like lets you relax, and we're still able to pay our mortgage on the shop because we were able to buy the building, buy a house for less than you couldn't have done that in California, like less than a third or whatever. So we're happy. We wanted some of the employees to move, but like we offered it to all of them and they all said, nah. And we figured, but like we tried. Yeah. So then we had to have like our backup plan was like, the web sales have to cover everything before. And we tracked it for 2 years on our web sales. And we're like, yep, the website could pay this amount of a mortgage for a shop and a house, or we tried to get it all in one place, like, shop and house on a 5-acre, but we couldn't figure that out. So I don't know. Those are some of the reasons. Does that answer your question kind of?
Yeah. No, it just sounds like I mean, it just didn't make sense anymore. That's it.
It was like you couldn't enjoy what California had to offer if you wanted to run FD and run a business and cover payroll and cover rent. It was like it demanded, I guess the business just didn't make enough to make sense to do all the above.
Mm.
So we're like, we will have a better life if we move out of state. And so we thought about many different states, but Florida just kept winning us over. So we're in Florida now.
Well, and I mean, you're close to 2 events anyway, similar to California, right? Like it's in your East Coast. I mean, there's definitely some bigger benefits to it. So it makes sense.
We're happy.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. And I don't think, I don't know Renee well, but I feel like she is the kind of person who like very much thinks everything through, where it's like, okay, I've covered, as many bases as possible. This is what makes the most sense. This is what we should do.
It's definitely like what you said. She had like, when we were going to move, she's open to other places, but she's like, we will never live in the desert of California again. Cause she grew up, in Palmdale, Lancaster area near where Willow Springs is.
Yeah.
And she's like, cause you could find places out there, like the outskirts of California. And I grew up in Washington, so I was open to that and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, like we have to go somewhere that has like palm trees and is green. And so it's like, she kind of wanted to be here. She likes the mountains too, but she like kind of likes like the tropical effect that Florida has, and like
just water in general.
Yeah, tons of water. She likes the humidity, so we're happy here. And
I mean, you got airboats now. Like that seems to be
airboats, like, drift boats. It's a drift boat, and it goes off an off-road drift boat. Who doesn't want one of those?
I'm planning a bachelor party with a buddy of mine for actually my friend with the Supra. We're kind of like looking at all these different places. Like, we'll do Vegas, we'll do all these different spots, and then I was like, dude, we could just go to Florida. Like flights are cheap, hotels are cheap. I'm like, we can do basically anything that we want to do in Florida. Yeah.
If you want to do the full experience airboat ride, and you want to go with Rad Dan, you got to plan it, and I'll take you.
I'll let you know. I think we're planning on like pairing it up with like a Cletus event too, and like going to a Cletus event. So I don't know how far you are from there, but like
I'm on the same coast as him, but I'm about 110 miles, so it's 2 hours roughly.
I would travel 2 hours for a Rad Dan boat experience. That's for sure.
We will have fun, and we can do skids in the parking lot with the Z3s.
All right, I might take you up on this offer, sir, because this is sounding like he's a big golf guy too. So I'm like, all right, you guys go golf.
I don't know how to golf.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. You can skip that part. So, all right. I think we might be sold on Florida then.
Yeah,
it's just such a underestimated area. I mean, you get like the Florida man stuff. Have you experienced any good Florida man stories yet?
Oh, Florida has some interesting people that are not like anywhere else. So, I guess like I don't know, like. I'm just like amazed. I just observe everyone. I'm like, what the heck? Like, how is that happening here? But I don't know. What do you mean?
Like constant chaos? I don't know. Is there like any just crazy people doing
the truck style is just horrible in my opinion. There's like the ones that have it squatted in the back, and I don't know exactly what we're gonna call that, but they have like a full blown lift kit, like 6-inch lift kit where it's like maxed out in the front and nothing done to the back. And then they do some different, it's like they want their exhaust to be the worst tone you could imagine out of whatever engine they have. And I'm just like, what? So there's that. Mm-hmm. And then there's the full lifted ones with like the rubber band tires that have like a 30 sidewall, but it's like a massive 26 or whatever rim, and it's like, and then they have it all lit up, and I'm like, okay, this dude spent like $80,000 on his truck, but he can't go anywhere. You can't like tow with that anymore. What are you doing? I don't know. I can't get my mind wrapped around those, but yeah, there's a lot of, and Florida's really into like the 3-wheeled Harleys, big time, and I can't get into that either. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, the trikes. I mean, it's like all the benefits of the motorcycle with like a slight bit more safety.
Why?
Couldn't tell you, man.
Couldn't tell you.
So what's a day look like for you right now? Like, what is your an average Rad Dan day?
So wake up, hang out with Renee a little bit at the house, have our coffee and breakfast. Then
I have heard you have a nice little cafe wherever you go. That's
I just
critical.
like coffee a lot, yeah.
All right,
and so we got an
appreciate
espresso
that.
machine, and we could,
Oh, you're rocking espresso too, like
yeah.
okay.
So
what
espresso
kind
is
of
more
machine?
like the weekends, though. You gotta,
It's
you
time,
can't
yeah.
overdo it,
Do you have like a full? I'm a big coffee guy, like big coffee guy. So like, do you have like a full build out of a kit, or like what do you have for an espresso machine?
I don't know the name that I have. So I have like one that looks old school with like the knobs to like for the pressure and stuff.
Okay.
So and then I have like a pretty decent grinder that I can like dial in really and like set. It has a scale built into it, so I can like
sweet
set exactly because each coffee bean that you try is gonna need to be ground at a different like. It can't be so fine with one where the other. So you almost have to sample one and then tamp it and then test it. And you're like, that tastes sour, and you could tell because it did.
Yeah.
And so, but so you kind of like it takes you like 5 minutes to make an espresso, and then you foam your milk, and then like I have different flavors, but that's something I had wanted. So the reason why where we moved doesn't have like a Starbucks or anything, so you couldn't really go get. They have one place, but it just doesn't. They don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
And I'm like really picky. Like I like really good coffee, and California is good at that. And where I grew up, Washington is good at that, but not Florida. So when we moved here, maybe there's some spots like if you go to a big city, but where we're at, it's kind of country. And no, so I got it, and I'm kind of pretty good with that now. So yeah, that's the beginning of the day, but that would be a weekend. So the beginning of the day, you just have normal, breakfast with Renee, hang out. Then I'll go to the shop at like 8:30.
Okay.
Pack orders that came in from the day before, and then like answer emails and stuff like that. And if we have like some obligations to like some partners or something, start working on that. And then the back half of the day, I'll be working on something like shop related with my hands, because I'll go crazy because that's really all I want to do is work on stuff with my hands, but I can't do it all the time. Got to do all the things to help run the business. And then,
Are you there like late, or I mean, I guess without all the staff and everything now, it's probably home a little earlier.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll get carried away on something you're doing and just stay till 9:00 because like I don't know, the shop's like where I could be here all day every day and like doesn't feel like I'm really working, I like being here. Yeah. So that's kind of the average day. Some days there'll be drifting in there, just like something out in the front, or there'll be like, I don't know, could be something completely unrelated to cars, I guess, if we're working on like getting the shop set up. So I did a lot of that this year, like fixing stuff and making it how I wanted it to be, to like function as a normal, like where I could build cars again if I need to, or I'm going to start with this guy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I know you're like moving racking at one point. You're looking at like paint booth setup, and then just getting tools in a good position and all that. I mean, that takes some time.
Yeah, it took a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing with crazy cards.
Crazy cards. That'll eat up several hours. Amazing how like the arm workout from those though.
Yeah, it's like this muscle on it.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about your voice. As somebody else with like a very distinctive voice, you are kind of accused of being generally monotone.
Yeah.
Is that,
or are you high? Are you high? And like,
I just want to like address that. No, not. I figured Florida. I mean, I
have been before, but no, I'm not. Like you're gonna say I'm high all day, every day. Definitely not. I'm like a super driven, pretty serious person. Like we gotta accomplish all this stuff. Like finish our checklist. Yeah. But my voice is very like people are like, oh, you're just the chill surfer dude. I don't surf. I've tried it 3 times. Not my thing. I don't really like going in the ocean that much, and my voice is monotone. It always has been. I don't know. It's just me.
I was always curious about it. Just like it's always fascinated me because like I've watched videos of yours for years, and just seeing like you as excited as you can be, you just kind of get a little louder.
I get loud. Like if you get me, like yank me out after a set of tires out of a drift car, that's like my full animated self. with like probably not monotone at that point. The rest of the time though, like I don't know, mostly monotone, unfortunately.
I mean, it's more just personality. I think like it's better to have something, right?
Yeah.
My favorite comment ever was like for one of the first videos, someone's like, "Oh, this dude's produced 3 podcasts and hasn't cleared his throat once." Because it always sounds like I'm about to clear my throat. I know.
You.
Yeah.
I never thought to think. I never like. Well, I kind of just accept people for how they are, and I'm trying not to be judgmental because like that you just see past that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I never. But now that you say it, I'm like, you're right. You gonna clear your voice soon?
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's something to lead in on and like branding on, right? Like I mean you definitely dove into the rad stuff. Like I always loved the 80s themed stuff you guys were doing with the intro and the glasses and like the silhouette and the big colorways and stuff like that. So
that's just I think it's good. My favorite. So like let's do 80s stuff and the mullet fits and whatever. It's kind of 90s 80s. I like both of it.
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s, that synthwave like era.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean I think it's important within just general like drifting, but like marketing in general to have something, right? It's easy to hang your hat on the guys who have some sort of like theme or story or personality. You know, if it's just a driver with like nothing, it's very difficult to want to follow them.
That is very true. So I wouldn't be what I am without Renee. So like Renee is like a branding genius. Mm-hmm. So I had the idea of like, I like the 80s and I like the mullet. That was my idea. But like the rest of the cool shit is from Renee and she's super creative. I had the idea of Rad Industries, which doesn't stand for Rad Dan. It's Renee and Dan Industries. So like, but then so I don't know, like it's cool. It's easy for me to like go with it and everything. And it is me. It's just me, but like not everyone has a Renee. So I'm lucky. she helped a lot.
Yeah. I think it really pushes that idea that like having a partner that's supportive and picks up where you aren't able to is so incredibly important. Like I know at least in my own life, like there's no way I could manage all the shit I have to manage every day without a wife that just says yes to stuff. Like I had another car show up in the driveway while she was gone the other week and like she didn't get mad, she didn't get upset. She was just like, "Oh, how are we going to fit that in the driveway?" I'm like, "Well, if I move this here and like move that there, like it's a 2-car driveway. I have 4 cars in it now." And then she's like, "Okay, what's the plan?" I'm like, "I need another drift car." She's like, "Yeah, you do." She's like, "Okay, well."
She's the best. She just said, "Yeah, you do."
Yeah, that's it. Like she what she did? She went and made a TikTok about it. Like she's got she's got like 100,000 followers on TikTok. So she went and made like a TikTok about it, and like all the people that follow her, like, "Oh my God, and I wouldn't know what I'd do if my husband brought another car home."
But you found the one you're meant to be with. Perfect.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I put up with her stuff. She puts up with mine. Her stuff is way, way easier to put up than my shit is. Like
Renee, yes, hers is easier too. And sometimes I'll like kind of fight her for a second, and then I'm like, I'll like have like a come to reality. I'm like, no, like don't be an idiot, Dan. Don't be an idiot. Good. She lets me do like all this stuff. Like, yeah. So you just, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, 100%. So where do you fall into ideology wise about tire size? Like, have we gone too far? Are the cars getting too insane, or like,
no?
Do we just keep going?
Don't keep going, but I guess it's so you can have a blast in like those piece of crap Z3s I have with like crap tires, and the smile is the same smile and it's the same adrenaline. It's a slower, like it's not as risky. It's slower. So I feel like in FD, if that's where this question is like pointed to, we have to stay kind of where we are. I know the tire manufacturers probably don't love that we eat tires like no matter what in 2 laps, and like we do need like super strong driveline parts, but like it's so entertaining to watch, even if like you're not participating in it. Like I think to take it further might be a little too much, but where we're at's pretty amazing. Like, and I think that the power to grip ratio is like, it is insane, but it is like when you get it right and like you get 2 drivers that have like a beautiful lap together, it just wouldn't quite be the same if you had like 600 horsepower cars with, I don't know, like not the same tire compound 265s, like 300 treadwear 265s. Like, yeah, they'd have close proximity and stuff, but it just wouldn't be as gnarly. I think it's just right how it is, I think.
I always look at it as like the difference between like Miata Cup racing and Porsche Cup racing. Like they're both quick, they're both really tightly packed. Like the racing is all good, but you're still going to watch Porsche Cup. Like if you're going to pick the two because they're
insane.
faster cars.
Like, yeah. That level FD is out is insane, and the money it takes, that part sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. Like that part sucks. And then you need the right people involved with your team. And it doesn't just happen. Like you have to be really like smart about how you do it or it'll fail. But it is just right. I feel like if it got to the point where the cars had 1,500 horsepower and you had to put a new engine every, I don't know, 2 rounds or like drag racing every time you were that's not, but like we're able to make an engine last for the most part a year. Transmission usually lasts a year. You refresh it, you fix stuff, and I think it's just right, but it is kind of on the borderline of being too far, but like, let us do it while we can. Don't take it away yet.
Would you, I guess, have the same sentiment if money wasn't an issue? Like if somebody, let's say Loctite comes in and goes, Dan, we're going to give you $2 million a year. Like, do you think you would still have that same opinion of like, we're okay? Or would you be like, nah, let's go. Like, I'm going to build 8 2Js and we're going to swap them out every time. And
maybe that's a good question. So there's no transmission though that'll like take, like, a 2J is not going to make 2,000 horsepower and have torque. Like you could make 2,000 with a 2J, but like, let's be realistic. Like you need functional driving. So you need like a nice power band. And it's not going to be like, you rev it to 6 to 8. It makes all this like that's not drivable. So you would be real selective of like the engine that could do it. And then you'd be breaking transmissions and diffs more. Like we break them sometimes now, but not crazy. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we're at like around the limit. Maybe 1,200 for every car being 1,200 would be the base, but like, and that you could still reliably like use the parts. But I guess like the Winters diffs and now the Bulldogs diff have evolved to like take even more horsepower than we make right now. But there's not a bunch of transmissions and there's not a bunch of things that'll take like let's say if we use an example, 2,000 horsepower and everyone runs 355s.
Yeah.
I don't know that like we'd be breaking shit and it would be a bunch of like, he's out. That battle didn't move forward because he can't fix it in 5 minutes. And like right now, I guess stuff like that does happen, but it seems like we kind of got it. The cars can't evolve to be like somewhat reliable at 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, I want to say like 2017 to 2019, that's really how things were. And that was before, like that's when, I mean, quick changes were still around, but like companies weren't developing or progressing quick changes for drifting. Transmissions were still around, but most guys were running like a T56, yacht guy in a dog box. Like they weren't progressing to meet that. I mean, I would argue that like we would have like 2 years of that until some transmission company comes in and goes, okay, we're going to be the one that everyone picks. So
they would. So that it would evolve, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It would make it that much more unobtainable. It's almost pro drifting is almost unobtainable for like, let's say a 16-year-old right now. He's like, I got my first car and I welded the diff and bought a handbrake and I'm going to pursue it. But dad doesn't have money. Grandpa doesn't, he has to do it on his own. Like, how is he going to do it? Like at this point, we're getting to the point where he has to be super marketable and I have to like be like, I'm going to retire. You're going to drive my Supra and I keep all the money. You just arrive and drive for free until I can find more money to pay you. That's like almost his only avenue. There's still like people that'll find their path, but it's getting very hard now. And cause I've been watching it the whole time and it's like, I thought it was hard when I did it, but now I don't envy someone that started right now. Like so if you brought it to 2,000 horsepower and it costing $1 million minimum to run it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I like that thought. But if it goes that way, I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah.
I'll evolve with it somehow. I'll find a way, but I don't think we should.
I think we are at the point where skill in a lot of ways can get you to FD, not just money. Like, I do think that there are guys on the grid right now who are just genuinely skilled that have figured out a way to get there. And I do agree that we are kind of like on that line where skill alone isn't going to get you to the show. You do need that marketability, right?
But you would have to be that 0.0 something percent, you know, of like just like that like perfect story of like just you're just that naturally amazing and you just make it happen behind the wheel. There will be those guys.
That does happen in other racing. I mean, I know like the comments will start blowing up because I always relate everything to F1, but I look at F1 as like, you know, the pinnacle of motorsports in a lot of ways. It's not perfect, but
for sure it is though. That's where all the money is.
Exactly. So like you have somebody like a Lance Stroll who's like dad literally bought him a race team and then bought him an ex-champion to be his co-driver, right? Like that happened. But then, you know, you could go back and say that, you know, a Lewis Hamilton who didn't have a ton of money, he still was pretty wealthy, was able to get to the point of being, you know, a 7-time world champion purely on driving ability. But then, you know, there's also the marketability that starts younger. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, I mean, I've got a 10-year-old now who wants to drift. And like, I could throw him in a Z3. I could throw him in a Miata. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything is available now that for $10,000, I could put him in a competition car. Now, it wouldn't be Pro-Am level, but like, he could go out to a base level or qualify at a Pro-Am event in an old E36 with a cage.
I think you're right. I took it a little too far, huh? Because like,
it's all good.
if you were involved with, you know, let's say when your son is 16 and you're still this deep in drifting, you could make it happen, even with like whatever money you're making at this point. But you'll have the right connections, and he would find his way into it. But
but somebody who's not as connected as I am, right? Like I'm arguably very connected.
You are very, yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm on the podcast with Rad Dan right now, but like, I'm obviously a different story just because I could call any FD driver and be like, hey, I need this, or, you know, the brands that I work with on a day-to-day basis, I could make a phone call and be like, hey, my son's racing, I need this part. But somebody who's like just discovered drifting, some dad who's just discovered drifting, it would be tough.
Difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it's still possible, but we're getting to the place where it's not possible, which is why fans sometimes like they'll have the comments like it's not what it used to be. It's not, you know, it's not obtainable. Yeah. And it's kind of true, and it's getting worse. But it's really fun to drive those cars when they're that fast and that much grip. Really fun.
What I say to people who are like, "Oh, it's not what it used to be," is like, what it used to be still exists. It's just not Formula Drift. Like, if you want to go see, you know, 2010 era cars, you can. There's tons of Pro-Ams out there that you can go and watch and support. If that's what you like, if you like 300, 400, 500 horsepower on 255s or 235s, you can go find it. It's just not Formula Drift anymore.
It's like, take the history of any form of racing. It did what we're doing. We're evolving how we should, but I hope we don't evolve to 2,000 horsepower where you have to switch your motor every round, like literally every round. It's like, that's so much more. But drag racing, look at like the highest level of drag racing.
Yeah. Every run.
A bunch of maintenance. Yeah. I don't know.
But
we'll see how it goes.
I also feel like the role of the driver is different at that point too. Like those drivers, and I know someone's going to correct me, but those drivers traditionally are not helping to rebuild those motors. They're not doing that. They get out of the car and they're doing PR. And you know, they're doing PR. Maybe they go to their trailer. They're doing all this stuff. And then, and 20 minutes before they run, they get back in the car, get set, go, get out, PR again, right? Like
he probably has the interest has the interest to help rebuild it, maybe, I would think, because that's how he got into this sport. Yeah. But like, that's another thing people are going to be like, like drifting, they don't work on their car anymore or whatever. Some of us have to, and we still do because we have to. Do we want to? Probably not. We just want to drive. We love driving. That's what, you know. So I think it could evolve to every driver just being like the marketing piece and then the driver, you know. Like he's doing PR and doing all his stuff which I don't see anything wrong with that as long as the structure is there for everyone to be on the same field. We're not yet though. Like the full field of, the 36 guys that decide to do pro each and every year. It's a little different of which guys do and don't come back or whatever, but like it's only like 13 of them that kind of have it, or not even maybe that have it like how,
Yeah. So I would say anybody who's made the switch where all they have to do is focus in on driving has done better. There's very few people that have made that jump to just being a driver that haven't done better. And there's very few people that are running the entire show that are doing incredibly well. It happens.
It's like barely though. It's almost too much in the head, It's pretty hard. Well,
that's what you said. You have to clear your head, right? Like it all cycles back to like, to get better racing, the drivers need to be just driving. But in order to do that, we need more sponsors and more money and more market. Like it's all just incremental gains. Like we get more marketing, that means more drivers can do this, and then you get these small steps. And that's what the 20 years
driving would be so much better too. Like it's pretty good right now. Yeah. But imagine think about a pro basketball player. He's not doing anything else except practice. He's training his body, with weights and working out or whatever, stretching. And then he's practicing basketball every single day. Obviously it's expensive with a race car and tires. You probably can't practice every day, but imagine how good the tandems would be. If the driver just practiced all the time.
You could be in a full motion sim all day, right? Like you'd be in a 5-axis sim just constantly driving with another guy next to you who's your training partner who's just driving against you all day. Their entire job is to have you run their doors.
Imagine that would be some cool drifting to watch. So I guess we would hope it gets to that.
I just pushing my narrative of how far I want drifting to go. I mean, I have such a vested interest in it. I just want to see the sport grow, right?
I do too.
That's
Renee and I will talk about it's stuck. It's just stuck. It needs just this little push to go to the next level. We're so close. And it's we just need to be in stadiums so bad. We need to be, but the car couldn't be as serious as it is and be in a stadium, probably certain stadiums maybe, but you probably have to tone it back a little because you can't get going 100 in a stadium and then, sustain an 80 mile an hour. There's not enough space.
You'd have to do what they do with the big air comps where you come in a door, right? You're entering the stadium at full clip.
And then kind of scrub speed and third gear on the rest of the course or something.
Yeah, you could do a straight in along one wall, right? All the way to the end. Big loop around the end and then curve in and maybe an S finish or something like that.
That's where we need to be, people.
I know. We need a big asphalt or concrete company to just come in and sponsor an event.
Because that would be really expensive every round. Okay, lay the track and then peel it up because football's here next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they do it with between hockey and basketball and lacrosse and whatever else.
It's possible.
Right?
Monster Jam. I don't know. It's possible, but it's not.
It's just a money thing.
I don't know.
It always comes down to money. That's it, right?
Yeah.
We'll get there. We're fixing drifting. Every episode.
One episode at a time.
I think someone's just going to compile. I want someone to compile all the ridiculous ideas we come up with and create what FD is in 5 years or 10 years, just based on the ridiculous things that we've developed on this show.
We need a billionaire to be into this, basically, also. That would help.
It could happen. I mean, there's lots of celebrities that get into different types of racing and inject a ton of cash into it, right?
That's what Brad Pitt need for drifting.
Brad Pitt gets into F1. Boom, you have an F1 movie, right?
True.
That's what I'm saying. It could definitely happen. Happen. I don't know. You talk to your billionaire friends. You got to have a few.
I don't think I have Yeah. Let me look around.
Have you made any celebrity connections now that you're, drifting famous? Who's the most famous person in your phone right now?
Oh, in my phone. Huh. I'm sure. I don't know. Celebrity, what? A movie star celebrity, or what do we?
I don't know. It could just be drifting celebrity.
I don't know.
Putting you on the spot.
I never thought about it that way. I'll get back to you. Yeah, I'm sure.
There's got to be somebody you've met over the years. I tried to see if you had an IMDb, but you were just featured in one film with HGK about their trip over their season in the US. You actually do have an IMDb, if you're ever wondering.
I didn't know. Okay.
Teach you stuff about yourself.
I'm just thinking, I don't know. Never really like pursued that stuff in life, like trying to find celebrity people, but I'm sure I'm friends with a couple. I'm not thinking of it right now.
Yeah, that's all good.
I'll work on the billionaire friendship stuff.
Please, if you could, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. All right, to wrap it up, I'm going to ask you the same question you asked everybody in your first vlog, and what makes you rad?
Besides the mullet, besides Rad Dan nickname or Rad Industries, I'm usually, let's think here, probably that I drift a Supra. How about?
I think that's pretty fair.
I'm willing to destroy the Supra on the track just for a good time.
Just for fun. A super rare car you're just willing to chuck into a wall at 100 plus miles an hour for shits and giggles.
Sure. There's probably many other things, but we'll go with that for now.
Well, dude, I'm really glad we finally got to do this. I'm very excited to have you back in the paddock. I'll find my favorite coffee. I'll bring it to you in Long Beach. If you want to do a coffee exchange,
we could. Okay, I'll do the same.
I'll bring my little mobile, my AeroPress. We'll make nice coffee.
We'll just do some quick coffee press. Okay,
yeah, I'm
we'll
down
do
for
it
that.
in the trailer. Okay,
sweet, sick. Cool. Anything else? Any final words?
I'm excited to be back, guys. Been missing it. Nah. Thanks for the interview,
dude. Thanks for being here. This is awesome and
fun to be on here with you. Yeah, good times.
Yeah. Well, for everybody listening at home, make sure to tune in. Watch the video, split it up. For everybody watching, you can subscribe anywhere you find podcasts, and we'll leave all the links to Dan's stuff. We did this after Black Friday. You had a really good Black Friday sale though, so. But make sure to get some merch. I'm sure there'll be some new stuff coming up for this season.
Very soon, new stuff. Yeah.
All right, sweet. Well, thanks again, man, and we will catch everybody next week.
All right, see you guys.
Oh!